Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Welcome back to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. We got the bling out today because we have a very special guest. We have Gillian Anderson, all the way from the UK, somewhere in the Midlands. I've never been there, but we're going to ask her about it. She told me it was kind of cold and muggy there today, kind of cold and muggy here in San Diego. We're going to lighten your spirits. We're going to lighten your load because we're going to teach you how to live a life by design. What does that mean? When it comes to your personal life, when it comes to your professional life, when it comes to your relationships, how do we design that? We're going to ask her about some of the great places that I've seen that she's traveled in the world and some of the experiences that she's had that help her develop a great business model and to be a coach. So thank you so much, Gillian, for being here with us on the Edge. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, April. And thank you for inviting me to join you.
Absolutely. I just am enamored with the red. Why do you like red?
Because it's bright, it's Christmas. Here in the UK, it's not just cold and muggy. It's actually cold and it's actually raining and cold, and it just red brightens. It's a statement color as well. It's not an angry color. It's a statement color to me.
It is a power color, and it brings out a lot of luck when it comes to Asian culture. So I'm going to ask you about that too, because you've been able to travel and do a lot of deep diving and get a lot of wisdom, as well as build great friendships. So dial back and tell us a little bit about how you arrive here in the world.
Okay. So I was born in the UK, but I'm also an Australian citizen. And I should mention to your guests that I do carry the name along with a very famous actress, but what I always say is that I'm older than her, so I had the name first. So I tend to go by Gillian B. Anderson. If anybody was to look me up on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. So yes, so I am a British subject, and I've returned to Britain after. When did I leave the UK? 1984. I returned 2.5 years ago, predominantly for family reasons. But during my time of travel, I have been so fortunate. I moved to Bermuda initially. I took up a position there, and actually I managed to make history there because I was the first woman to take her husband as my spouse or on the work permit. So they actually had to change the law. Instead of reading a man and his wife, they had to change it to read a person and their spouse. So I'm very proud of that for women's, women's development, women's progression, because a lot of my career up till I would say about 2000 was very much hitting my head against that glass ceiling. But fortunately today, whilst there's still a little bit of that, I think the progress that's been made in that quarter is amazing, and the women who have actually forged it are all absolutely amazing women, and that's one of the things that I do focus on. But just a little bit more of a background about me. So I've lived on 5 continents. I've visited about 65 countries, and I've worked in about 40 of them. A lot of that was in the corporate world, and I've always been in business transformation and organizational change. But in 2000, when I moved to Australia, I actually also came across psychometric testing and profiling. And I realized that you can have the best systems and you can have the best technology, but if you don't look at the people side of it, if you don't recognize people as individuals, then you're never going to be successful. And all of my journeys has really given me an understanding of culture, and that differences, as individuals, we're all the same. It's society that focuses on the differences, and it's about believing in people.
Well, it's society, and it's also politics, or as I like to call it, politricks.
Yes.
No, because
exactly.
Again, if you're traveling in the same lane, we're all going in the same direction. There's not a lot of confusion. There's not a lot of anxiety. But when you have these obstacles, when you have to edit and pivot, when you have to move left or right, when you have to judge, when you have to make judgments, when you have to make decisions, because judgments aren't always negative, but when you have to make decisions, but making informed decisions based upon people's needs, just like your need was to take your husband with you, and their need was to change the law. Was pivotal. Women in the workplace also need to examine this, in my opinion, a little closer, because it's one thing to change the sex. It's another thing to change the isms, the classism, the racism, the sexism, the ageism, all of that. So women in the workplace, do you find that they are a lot more progressive? Because here in the United States, I'll be honest with you, I'm thinking it's a little parallel. I'm not finding the women really, they're soaring as far as publicity and visibility and positions, but their heart-centeredness, their intention, their drive, and their wanting for their sister to be equal, if not greater than they am. Because like me, I mentor people all the time. I want my students to be better than what I am.
Exactly.
Where do you find women in this space around the world?
I find that women have finally started to bring that feminine energy into the business world. And I think we're going to see that more and more as more people leave the corporate and set up their own businesses or go into the gig economy. You're going to see that more and more. And I must say that Singapore was a really interesting place to live. I was there for 5 years. Very, very safe. Wonderful, wonderful people. But still there was that male dominance. But once I got to Australia, that was a different kettle of fish. And if anything, I think the pendulum at the moment in Australia has swung too far. I've got 3 sons and 3 daughters. In 5 of them are in Australia.
You have 6 kids?
Well, I have 2 children of my own, and I have 4 stepchildren. And I'll talk a bit more about that later.
You got 6 kids.
I have, and I have 14 grandchildren. 13 of them are in Australia, and 1's in Ireland. So, and I do feel quite sorry for the boys sometimes in Australia, that the women, the girls, have become quite hardened and quite. They've, as I say, the pendulum swung a little bit the other way at the moment, and I think we've lost a lot of that softness and a lot of that. You know, women are feminine, and we should be proud of it. We don't need to be brash. We don't need to be loud to get our message across. But we can be honest.
They think that gives them power. You know, you don't have to wear a business suit. You can still wear a skirt, stockings, and heels and be just as effective, because women are, in my opinion, the better negotiators.
Exactly.
We do bring in that feminine energy. We do bring in that softness. We do bring in that ability to listen, to nurture, to care about one another. And kindness is really big in the workplace right now. And as you stated, so many people, especially here in the United States, have opted not to go back to work. They say, forget that noise. I am going to start my own business. I'm going to work from home. I'm going to be able to have flexibility. I'm going to be able to create my life by design. Explain to me, what does that mean to you?
So to me, life by design is living life on your terms. And as our business is such a big part of it, it's about developing your business so that it supports the life that you want to lead. So it really, your business defines the life you want to lead. And it's really about understanding, what do you want to achieve personally? And so what are your personal objectives along with your professional objectives? And then how do you define your business objectives that complement? So for instance, there's no point in having your headline strategy, which is your business strategy, that says we're going to triple our turnover this year, and then have your personal objectives for 2022 saying family time, because there's no way that if you're going to triple your business, you're going to be able to spend time with your family. So it's about actually looking at your life holistically. I was very fortunate when I worked for the Bank of Bermuda back in 1990. They put through all their officers through the 7 Habits, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. And that was the first time I was introduced to really designing a life that's holistic, because you identify your 7 roles, some of which are business, some of which are community, some which are family, and you then plan your life and your activities all based on the roles that you have. And you don't stop being a mother the moment that you open the door of your office. And the same is you don't stop being a businesswoman, even though you try and park it. When you come home and you're cooking meals, you are still thinking about how things will affect.
Mm-hmm.
So the life design to me is a holistic, deliberate, and nothing by chance.
And I like to keep it authentic with my guests. Mm-hmm. Everyone's not afforded the luxury to design their life. Sometimes people have to deal with the cards that they're dealt in life. They're a single parent. They live in poverty. They are not afforded the ability to have a good education. You've traveled around the world. You have really seen women that have been oppressed for a variety of different reasons. What do you say to that woman?
I agree. Sorry, April.
No. How does she begin?
Yes. Where does she begins by saying, if it's the 31st of December 2022, what would be the one thing that she would want to achieve? Now, maybe it is just being able to put food on the table every day for her family. Maybe it's being able to get out of that oppressed job, that bullying boss, that abusive relationship. And if she can identify that one thing that's really important, then it will impact the decision she makes. Mm-hmm. And it's, yes, if you're struggling to put food on the table, you're not going to worry about whether whales are being slaughtered in Japan. It's about identifying where your life is right now, and what is the one thing that you can really focus on to make that life a little better. So that's what I talk about by life by design.
So what you're saying also essentially is this is goal setting. I'm a big goal setter. I love to be challenged. I met and exceeded all of my goals this year. But what's scary is now I've got to set new goals. Now I've got to have new dreams. Now I have to have new aspirations. I need to change my circle of influence because I'm doing different things. Mm-hmm. And people don't take that into consideration. They're stuck. I like to say sometimes they're stuck and stupid because they don't really realize that there are so many opportunities, and we still are playing small, Gillian, and you know that. The world is so vast. That's like me and my podcast. I really made a conscious effort to reach out to people like you, world leaders, to bring that into my space and to my brain space to open it up and let them know that this is not just your city, this is not your state, this is not even your country, but it's on a global platform. From a global perspective, are you really working in that space with women globally?
Absolutely. I've got clients in South Africa, in Australia, in Asia, and in fact, we've talked before about my book that I wrote.
Let me see it. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to put it up a little higher so I can see it, and sometimes the screen gets bad. Yeah. Hold on, let me okay. And it is Second Chance for a Love to Last, the ultimate guide to marrying again. Girl, let's talk about that. I've only been married one time. I'm still married to him after 37 years, and that is my dude. But tell me what that's like.
Well, before I go to that, the reason I showed it to you is that a Mongolian lady reached out to me about 3 years ago and asked me to work with or to develop a course for some Mongolian couples. And now this book is being translated into Mongolian, and every 6 months I go on, because she runs the course over and over again, and every 6 months I go on, and I love the time that I'm invited to answer and to help those couples who are doing the course. And whereas when we did it, there was about 12 couples. Now I have every time I go on, there's over 100 people on that course. So
let me ask you a quick question. Hold that thought. What I want to ask you, that is really not the cultural norm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
exactly.
Am I correct in that? Okay, so you're a trailblazer in that as well, because it's like, you're a woman, this is the culture, this is what you do, this is the man's role. Sometimes there's arranged marriages, shut up, be silent, you don't work. So for you to really go into that space is trailblazing.
Yes, but it's also about taking those life lessons and recognizing that each culture is different. So you play down some parts, but you can play up others. And the book is still relevant to whichever culture, that wants to apply it. But second marriages, as you said, are very common across the world. In India, for instance, who have a lot of first marriages are arranged, that the second marriage is often it falls into two categories. It's either a necessity because there's children, there needs to be survival, really, or the second marriages are a marriage of choice. So it depends on the culture and such like. But I wrote that book because when I divorced my first husband, and I was a single mum long before we actually divorced, and then I met an amazing man who I've been married to now for, 14 years. Yes, 14 years.
That's beautiful.
I wrote this book in 2011. I started it in 2011. I published in 2014, but there was very little really good advice. You had to search the internet. You had to read lots of books, and I did all of that, and I brought it together. That's why I call it the ultimate guide for marrying again. And it starts off quite abstract, really. It talks about feelings and love and things like that. But by the end of the book, it's down to really practical stuff about the legal aspects. And I make a big disclaimer: this is not legal advice. Then moving in together.
I know you got to cover yourself, but it's basic understanding. Number one, falling in love again. Like I said, I've been married to Mr. Magnificent for 37 years. And I don't think there would be another person on this planet that could hold a candle to him and his love and how he's treated me, but also how I treat myself and how I love myself and how I reserve just a little extra space for me along with some money. Because what happens is one partner or the other And now we have to look at heterosexual and homosexual couples
Mm-hmm.
because it's a lot different. They can be very combative. Sometimes you're getting with someone because you want to marry up. Sometimes you're getting with someone that's not evenly yoked. Sometimes you're getting married to someone that's a manipulator. There's a whole lot of things. So after you've been through your first marriage and divorce, I suggest that you do a little soul searching and find self before you catapult into another situation where you could find yourself in the same kerfuffle. Wouldn't you agree?
Mm. Absolutely. There's statistic that 70% of people who divorce remarry within 3 years. So it's a rebound. But part of this book, but I've also written a second book, which is an ebook, is on the 7 heartbreakers of second marriages. And I've, through all my research, through my mentoring of couples, I've identified that there's 7 main. It's always an 80-20, but there's 7 main reasons why second marriages don't last.
What are they?
First one is children, because you've got when you come together a second time, and this is something that Steve and I we struggled with because we were both really the head of the families, so we had to learn to work together and not always try to be, the head, the leader, and such like. So, and my children grew up in a fairly cash flow rich world. So if we wanted to go out, we went out. Steve's children, there were 4 of them with one income, and plus obviously his wife. So they grew up in a very different environment. So bring them together. And can I tell you a little story that I think illustrates this?
Absolutely.
My daughter absolutely adored Steve from the day she met him, and fairly early on, she went to stay with him. She was having a lot of trouble at school, and he took her and his second daughter. He's got twin girls, so second daughter is like 10 minutes younger than the first daughter. He took the 2 girls out for lunch. Now, Catherine, she was quite hungry, so she ordered a steak, whereas his daughter scanned the menu and ordered spaghetti bolognese because it was, one of the cheaper items on the menu. For 6 months, she thought that that Catherine was taking advantage of her dad and was quite reserved towards her. Now they're absolutely best friends, but one little action like that. And Catherine, if she had absolutely realised, she would never have ordered steak if she'd have actually had more understanding of the different upbringing, the different values that the families had. And that was a lot of the early days, was recognising the differences and getting the children not to judge each other, and also trying to avoid the influences of the ex-partner as well. But
well, yeah, the snarkiness, because she's going to say, oh, Gillian's very highbrow, and you're going to have to do this, and are you going to be able to live up to her standards, and blah 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 blah. And you know what? It was an adjustment for you too, because you're used to going out and shopping at name brand stores and all of that, and not really considering being a little bit more meek and mild.
Exactly.
That's not the situation. So what are the other 6?
Okay, so children is the first one, and it's the biggest. Then it's money, different views on money. You often get a saver and a spender. You can have unequal funds that are brought to a marriage. So money is the second one. Household chores and environments and the way people live is the third one. Then intimacy is the fourth one. Different values, different goals. One might, if you're thinking about retirement, one might want the white picket fence, while the other one's thinking, great, we're going to travel the world. The sixth one is wider family influence, and that's very big in some of the cultures, like the Asian cultures. That can be huge.
Girl, it's in every culture. You always got that nagging cousin, aunt, sister that always wants to interject, think that they know that your relationship much better than you, and always want to have something to say, and they're the ones that's home alone.
Mm-hmm. And particularly, at the parent level as well, that can have the biggest effect. And then the last one is addictions and abuse. So they're the seven. They're the seven heartbreakers. And in my book,
let me recap them because I made notes here: children, money, household, intimacy, family influence, and addiction.
And also different goals and values.
Goals and values.
Yeah.
Well, see, there's a lot there to choose from, because in your first marriage, I would think, you've had a template. You've been through that. And let's just talk about some of them really quick. The children. Oh, Lord, we got a blended family. And it's worked out splendidly. There was a little challenge at first. And me and my husband's son's mother, he wasn't married to her, are best of friends now. We absolutely adore each other. We're peanut butter and jelly. But it took work. When it came to incorporating my stepson into our family, there was a little trepidation, because he says, oh, now, my father and you have had a daughter. Now I'm sloppy seconds. No, there's a place for you as well. You love her more than you love me. No, it's not a competition. There's differences. But then he goes home and he brags about, oh, I was at my dad's, and, we did this, we did that. Now he's spoiled because he's the only child, where there's siblings there. So there's always going to be a cat fight. When it comes to money, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you're right. And each case has to be treated separately, but there's two underlying things. Is one, when you first get married, you tend to be younger, and you actually form your values together, the family values together. When it's the second marriage, most are more formed. So when you're it's like merging two companies with different policies, different values, different processes. You've actually got to recognize that there are going to be these differences, and you can either take a hybrid approach, or you'll say, so for instance, holiday traditions. What traditions can we take from each side, and what traditions can we create for ourselves? We did that. We took a little bit from each, but we were very keen to create our own traditions as well for the children, for both sides.
And family.
The other thing is fairness. Absolutely. It's not about favoring one side, because what can happen is that the step parent can actually not favor her own children, because she doesn't want to be seen to be spoiling them, or to be, them being favorite. And then you get the opposite, where her own children or his own children will feel rejected.
Right.
So it is a minefield.
You overcompensate. But family meetings are important. Conversation is key. Do not leave any margin for error, any assumptions. You got to talk. You got to talk to the partner, because that partner is also feeling their feelings. Okay, is this woman really going to love my children? When I'm not there in their presence, is she cruel to them, or is she loving to them? What is it that's not being said? What is being said by the ex that's influencing this relationship? So it's a lot. And their children, they're little sponges. They're absorbing everything. They're watching everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I do, I mentioned back in 2000, I came across psychometric testing. Well, in 2009, I really got into a particular type of psychometric testing. It's called talent dynamics, and it's quite different to most of the testing, where you get your results and go, that's nice. Whereas with talent dynamics, it's the start. but it's really about understanding the different energies of the different people. And we put all of our children through this profiling, and from that we recognize how to communicate with them in a way that was most meaningful to them, how they learn, what are the sorts of questions that they ask. So if you think of it like the first one is like spring, very big picture thinking, very dynamo. They always want to know what's going to happen, what's the future, what do they need to do. Whereas the people who fall more into like a winter type of personality, they want to know how, they want to know the detail. I had a classic with one family that I worked with family dynamics, where mum was that very winter energy. She wanted to know the details. She needed systems. She needed process. Was the two children were that spring energy, that head in the clouds, a big picture. And I just sat down with both of them and I said, look, when you come home from school, your mum needs to know if there's a letter in your bag. She needs to know what you need to pack for next day. Then once you've satisfied her with that, then you can tell her about what happened in the playground or how you received an award today. And you can be all effervescent and such like, but you need to understand what your mum needs first. And they went, absolutely. The kids got it like that.
Oh, I know.
Absolutely got it.
I want to run through these other 6 really quick.
Yes,
let's talk a little bit about money.
Yes.
Money sometimes can be a deal breaker, and me and Mr. Magnificent, we said we weren't going to let that be a deal breaker because he's a saver, I'm a spender, and he's very, very methodical. He is very responsible, where I'm a little bit more whimsical, a lot. I had to learn that. But again, he puts his foot down when he needs to, but I always have my own money. See?
Exactly.
And God blesses the child that's got his own. And women, I don't care how much you love him. What if he dies? What if he gets disabled? What if he goes astray? Then you sitting there, scratching shit with the chickens, looking stupid. When you've worked your entire 15, 16 years of marriage and you have nothing to show for it.
Yep.
That was key.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a hard one with us. As I said, I was always the head of the family. Well, for a long time I was head of the family. I had a good wage, and Steve was very much, he had to live a frugal life. So what we came up with in the end was we both had our own accounts, and but we also had the household accounts, the family account. And so we both paid into that, and that was where we would have the discussions about, do we really need a new kettle? The other one's still working, and just because it's glass and fancy and turns colours, we don't need it. But we could have those discussions. But if it was something to do with what we values, our own values, Steve's a pilot, a small plane pilot, and he will not go into a car park, pay for a car park if he can avoid it. But if he gets the opportunity to fly a plane at £350 an hour, he'll be there like that, because that's high on his value list.
Exactly.
And we always have money for what's high on our value list. So by having the separate accounts with an amount in, then you can agree. I'm not going to say, Steve, do you really need to go flying? And he won't say to me, do you really need that new sweater? Because they are part of our own value systems.
Let's kick it up a notch. What do you think of prenuptial agreements? I don't know. If I look at it like this, if you ask me to honor you and be your wife through thick and thin, sickness and in health, death do us part. But then too, I look at it and I say, I'm coming with a boatload. I got a couple million here, and you did not help me build that. I don't know how I feel about a prenuptial. I would be a little crunchy if someone asked me. But then if I'm mature and I am a woman standing on my own feet, I might understand. But prenuptials are not a dictatorship. They are a negotiation, correct?
No, well, not even that really. They're a line in the sand. Then they're not really even in negotiation. We didn't have one, and I wish we had.
Really?
Yeah. And once I started researching for the book, I realized just how important in a second marriage it is to have a prenuptial agreement, particularly where there are children and ex partners and parents all floating in the background. Because all a prenup agreement is, it's stating the situation where you are as at the time that you get married. So if if the unfortunate event that one of the partner passes away, there is no doubt what the surviving partner brought to that marriage. So when you get into inheritance, when you get into property ownership, you've got that reference back to. So they're not really a negotiation; they are a statement of fact at a particular time.
But I thought it was also a statement of fact of in the dissolution of the marriage, who gets what?
Well, that's your divorce settlement, but that's different to your prenup. Your prenup is saying this is what we bought into it. So when you get to if you were to get to that divorce, then that can be taken into consideration because that was prior to the marriage. But let me put it another way to you, April. Do you take out travel insurance when you travel abroad?
Absolutely.
Yep. It's only there as a protection. It's not there because because you think you're going to get sick. A prenup is only there as a protection just in case something untoward happens. And if people who really argue about prenups really should be thinking, is this the right marriage for me? If I'm that worried about that they're asking me to sign this, and also it's not about just signing it. A prenup is only valid if you both have your own solicitors, your own lawyers,
right?
Because it is not anything under duress where one partner's made to sign something. It is an independent audit, if you like, of where you are in your life so far. So I am very much for prenups, as long as they're understood that they're there as a point in time audit of where you are at that point in your life.
Okay, good to consider. Household effects.
Right.
Again.
Well, it's more the chores and the way the household's run.
Right, because there's got to be rules. Mm-hmm. Here, ours are. I like to cut the grass. He's in there washing the clothes. He washes dishes. There's no role. Whatever needs to be done is what gets done, but it's done with respect and it's done with honor and it gets done. You've got some partners that don't want to do nothing. They don't want to pick up their underwear. They don't want to wash a dish. They don't require that their children do anything. They think that their new wife is the maid. So you have to really kind of consider all of that and have chores and have responsibilities. It's just, that's like me. I'm big on making my bed every day. It's a personal discipline, and so again, I incorporate that, but I don't make the bed as good as he does because he was in the military. He can bounce a quarter off of it. Oh yeah, he's sharp with it, but I get it. Everybody has to do that. Intimacy. Yeah. Girl, I'm in love with making love.
Well, intimacy is there's 4 levels of intimacy. It's not just the physical intimacy, but there's the intellectual intimacy as well. And so it's intimacy at all levels is what you've got to address. Just going back to the chores, it's really important to understand before going into a second relation or going into a relationship, what the attitude is towards those chores. And
Right.
it can be a really big decision as to whether it actually is going to work. But again, coming back to the personalities and understanding the different personalities, you know, if somebody is of an accountant type, you know, loves the details, then they should take the chores that they like doing. You know, so there is a systematic way that you can actually address this. You know, and also if you know if one travels a lot, then their chores, you know, maybe less than the other one, but it's you know it's based on, you use the word, it's based on respect, and it's based on love, really, because
You
why
know
would
what?
you want to leave your underwear on the floor if
But
you
you
actually
can
respect
gauge
the other
that,
person?
Brains, you can gauge that from the get-go. You know, when you're
Mm,
dating, check around. Look
mm,
in the refrigerator and see if there's got mold growing. You know, look and see if the hamper is done. You know, if the laundry is done. Observe people. You have to pay attention. Don't be blinded by this thing called love, because
exactly.
you can be tricked up. And as you were saying, intimacy is in the mind. You know,
Hmm.
is this person able to hold a conversation? Do they make me laugh? Do they hold my hand? Are they respectful? You know, again, if some people don't have quote unquote traditional sex, and that's
Hmm.
okay. But what is sexuality? You know, do you make me feel good? Do you tell me that I look pretty? I smell good. I look, you know, it's so many things that turns you on.
Hmm.
It's
Are
what
they
turns you
considerate?
on. Are they considerate? You know, do they have a wandering eye? All
Hmm.
of those things are things to really consider.
Yeah.
Goals and values.
Yep. Well, as I mentioned earlier, if one is looking towards a retirement of the white picket fence and the other one wants to travel, you're going to end up with, you know, conflict, and that's what we want to avoid. There's we're never going to agree on everything, and there are 70% of issues can never be resolved, but it's having strategies to address those unresolvable issues. And if your goals and your values are so different, then you are going. There are ways around it. If you recognise that you know that 70% are not going to be resolvable, but you've got to put in the effort. Um, an example is if the wife has always been on holiday with the wider family, and the you know the partner wants holidays just the two of them, or just the you know themselves and the kids, then you have to come up with something that's going to work. You know, maybe 1 week a year, maybe the wife goes with her family, and the husband just goes for the weekend, things like that. But it's how big a difference are the goals and the values, and are there compromises that can be made that that can work.
Well, you know, and also your personal life goals. That's a lot of times where people find that they separate. They say, well, we grew in different directions. You know, maybe your wife has raised the children and she wants to go back to college. Maybe your husband has worked, you know, 20, 30 years and he's ready to retire and you're still living that highbrow lifestyle. What, where is there a synchronicity between the two? Sit down occasionally and talk about, where do you see us being in 5 years from now? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? And then look internally within yourself and see if you are able to make the adjustment, because you can definitely grow in two different directions just based upon that.
Yep.
Family influence. Oh my God. You got not just those kids, but you have, like I said, you got the aunt, you've got the mother-in-law, you've got the father-in-law, you've got the other parent or other spouse that's disabled, and
Hmm.
now you are taking on their responsibility as a caregiver. You never expected any of this.
Yeah.
You know, you really got to settle into that, because people always say, well, I didn't marry the family. That's a lie. You did
Yeah.
marry the family. Now, your
Yeah.
relationship, we made that promise to ourselves when we got married that we would never let anybody live with us. That's out. If we can give you a few bucks to, get you through whatever you can get through, we'll do that. But taking on your kids and taking you in, it's a disruption, it's a distraction, and it can be devastating. We weren't doing it. What do you think?
I think that different circumstances, sometimes you do have to take on. I mean, Steve, my husband, has been brilliant with helping me look after my dad just before he passed away. He actually made the decision with me that when COVID hit, we were going back to Australia, and he made the decision that he was going to support me. I had to stay in the UK to support my sister who was looking after dad, and he had seen his children.
I'm sorry, let me clarify that, because my mother did live with us, and Mr. Magnificent was wonderful. But I'm talking about, sometimes when you have the family member the other family members that don't want to do anything.
Oh, yes.
You have to take all that on yourself. It can really hinder a relationship.
What's most important there is that the couple support each other and understand each other, because where the wider family really influence and can break down a marriage is where the partner sides with the family, because that's if you like, they're more likely to align with their values because they grew up, they influence their values. But recognizing, if you've got a wife, a woman in particular, coming into a very forthright, very gregarious family, and she's quite timid, she can be very easily embarrassed. She can do something really innocent that can really turn on her, and that's where the partner absolutely 100% must be there to support their partner. And and if it's a case of scaling back the contact with the family, or if it's about talking to the family and saying, I know we've always done things that way, we've always made karaoke part of our holiday fun, but it really is something that that Jane is, it really embarrasses her, and they've got to speak up. They've got to support each other.
They do.
That's so
that conversation.
Important.
This is a big one. How do I say this gently? Addictions.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to a particular age, everybody's going to come with something.
Mm-hmm.
Kids, bad credit, drugs, medical
alcohol.
Alcohol. What's your tolerance level? Brains, this is another way for you to observe before you get married. Look at behaviors, look at patterns, look at signs, look at symptoms, look at their anger management. What turns them from a flicker to a flame? Are they aggressive? Is this a similar situation or similar pattern that you've seen or you've experienced in previous relationships? Are they seeking help? Have they fallen off? Do they fall into depression? Is it mental health? Are they self-medicating? I mean, the list is endless. Okay. You have to understand your risk tolerance.
Yep.
And what you're aiming to do.
Yeah. And also, April, if you're coming into a second relationship and you have children, you are a package. That's right. And this is where I see so much heartache, is the adult may fall in love or think they've fallen in love in lust sometimes, or infatuation with their person, but they're not considering the impact of that on their package, their children as well. And as much as you might absolutely love them, if they have an addiction or they have a behavioral issue, you have got to look at it as the whole. How is that going to affect your children? How is it going to affect their upbringing, their personalities, their safety?
Yes, and listen to your children. You find that there are situations on men and women that they will have their child as the sacrificial lamb. Oh no, this person, they couldn't have done this to you. They didn't touch you. They didn't hit you. They didn't do this. Listen to your children and observe.
Mm-hmm.
Pop up
Absolutely.
pop up at inopportune times. Ask questions. Don't plant seeds, but be inquisitive and watch your mate. Are they addicted to pornography? That is huge. I saw that, some people that I've interviewed before, that the pornography really is crazy. The sexuality and the upbringing of your children. Are your children taking on bad habits because of this? Are they drinking? Are they smoking? Are they in a combative situation? Are they running away? A lot of this, are they isolating themselves on this computer because there's influences inside this device right here that is turning people's lives around? Well, I tell you, Gillian, you have been a wealth of information on so many levels, and designing a life that is yours, it's like a mosaic. You can't put the pieces together. Sometimes they're broken, but sometimes you can put them together and make the most beautiful piece of art.
And thank you. And it's really about starting with the identity. Who are you? And that's where I help. I start with my mentoring clients. I start with, who are you? Who are you really? And that's where we look at the personalities, we look at their values, we look at the roles that they have, and then from there, so each one is customized exactly what that client wants. But the first step is always to know who you are and what you want, and how you want to design your life. And as we talked about earlier, it may be a little incremental change. It may be just being able to put food on the table every single day for your family. Or it may be a lofty goal, of starting your own business and expanding a business and such. It doesn't matter, but it's about you being in control of your life and you designing it, not letting life happen to you.
What happened for you. And you know what? We are the observers of our life. We are the character actors. We are the directors. To thy own self, be true. Thank you so much for being here on The Edge. I really appreciate you and value you and honor the work that you do. Put that book up one more time and hold it up for a second, because I want people to see it. I'm getting a little graininess. Hold on. Now, you can purchase that on Amazon, correct?
That's right.
Okay. I think that is absolutely amazing. Brains, go out and get it. It's a great read. It could be a great holiday gift for someone, or just a gift in general for someone that you think is struggling. They might want to read it, on the airplane, but it's valuable information. Gillian, please tell my brains how to get in contact with you, please.
Okay, so if anybody wants to talk to me, they can contact me at Gillian with a G, Gillian, at Radial One, RADIAL, and then the number one, the numeric one, .co.uk. And they also might like to look at my website, which is familyrelationshipdynamics.com.
Okay, familyrelationshipdynamics.com. And I'll put all of that information at the back of the interview here so that you will not miss it. And understand, when you're looking for her on social media, she is Gillian B. Anderson. That's a B for brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'll talk to you again soon.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, April. It's been a pleasure talking to you and sharing with your audience, your brains.
Thank you. All right, brains.
Bye-bye.
Get it together. I'm counting on you.